Amy Egan. I work for rural sourcing, so I sit on the other side of the stores. It's pretty awesome. Good to be here. I am going to talk about Angular.NET apps. I'm going to focus mostly on Angular. I know this is a JavaScript group, and then tiny bit of .NET. The history of this is out of necessity for me. I had a job where my boss said, we're going to do this, and we had been doing .NET apps with Razor views or jQuery or just cobbled together, tangled mess. And my boss was like, we need to clean this up. We need separate front end, back end. Sorry, is it hard to hear me? Okay. So this was sort of how I got started learning how to do this, just an example project so that I could understand how it all worked together. So some more background on why you might want to do this. It's modularity, it's reusability, it's that tech is always changing. Someday people might say, oh, why do we want Angular? Let's stop supporting this. Let's go do something else. And you could pretty easily swap out that front end and still use the same back end. You can write one API that works for this front end, and then you could sell it as a service so that other people can use it too. And you could write whatever backend you want to. It doesn't have to be .NET. It can be anything, obviously. But .NET is what I did, so that's what my example is. So if you want to do this in .NET, I promise you there's not very much C# coding. This is a template, so it kind of just makes it all for you. And then you can focus on the Angular part of it. There's a few different tutorials online that I followed. One is this Microsoft one that was great. Yeah, lots of resources online. The things that you're going to need, Node.js, obviously, and then Visual Studio and .NET Core if you're doing the .NET version of this, if you want to try it out. And then to make it really easy, I'm starting from a template. And Visual Studio does a lot of this for you. And then you end up with this awesome application. I'm sorry, it's probably a little hard to see, but this is just an image. I'll go into the code once I've walked through it a little bit more. And then the thing that's really cool about this template is that it makes the .NET Core app, but then it also automatically generates this client app for Angular inside of it. And when you run it, you get this kind of basic template app. And there's just some basic display stuff, and then there's a way that it's calling to a backend to get data. But I didn't want to just stick with the template. I wanted to know how it worked. So I started adding my own Angular components following that Angular Heroes example. I don't know if any of you have done anything with Angular. They have a pretty great walkthrough to learn how to do it, and it's a Heroes example, so that's what I'm using. The Angular CLI is great because all the components need to be in a module, and this builds the component, puts it in the module, sets everything up for you, really easy. This command here is just to generate a new component. I'm calling it Heroes, and I want to put it in the app module. And then it generates the code for me. And it needs to be added to the routes so that it can show up on our page. I need to give it an actual link so that we can actually see it and navigate to it. And you know what? I'm going to try to just go through the code itself because I'm sure you can't even see this. Okay. So we've generated this hero component. And is that big enough? Can you see it now? All right. And we're giving it this method, getHeroes. I made a service, because now, of course, I'm walking through my finished code instead of my setting it up code. And it calls a service, and then the service, if we go into that, will make this API call. So it will get the heroes and return this observable. And then on the back end, I'm just giving it a list of heroes. It's nothing magical. It's not actually connected to a database or anything. We're just pretending. So here's ultimately the list of heroes that I'm sending it. And here's my getHeroes method. And it returns that same list of heroes. So if we go and actually look at it, I've got this list of heroes. They've got IDs and they've got names. And then there we go. I have a hero detail component. And this has a way to get the hero that we want to display, a way to save any changes that we make, and a way to go back to the previous page. And that's just really a simple editor. It's got this ng model, which tells it to go look at this hero that we're sending it, or that we're updating from the service. And then it just displays it in an input box. We've got a save button that calls that save method. We've got the go back button that calls that go back method. It does the double curly brackets to show, like, we want to show the hero ID property, we want to show the hero name property. And then I've got this flag that says was saved. At the start of it, wrong way. At the start of it, we say it wasn't saved because we're still editing things. But then on save, we're updating the flag so that we can show a confirmation. So if I go in here and make a change, I can save it. And it's not really saving to a database. We're just pretending again, but that's what it looks like. But to get that to work, you can see in this address bar that we've got detail and then an ID. And to get that set up, we have to add that to our routes. And that's in this module here. And so I'm just telling it, when I say /heroes, go to the heroes component. And when I say /detail, this little placeholder ID, then it's going to go to the hero detail component, and the hero detail component is going to get whatever I pass as that little placeholder ID. So in our example, it's 11. When the hero detail component tries to get the hero, it takes that ID parameter and it passes it along to the back end, and it searches for whichever hero matches that ID, and then it just shows it. Angular is really big, so for a half-length talk, I can't get into everything that it does. But please, if you guys have questions, if there's something that you want clarification on, if you've started working on Angular, if you're brand new at Angular, like, what do you want to know? Please tell me. I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going.
I got a question about Angular.net specifically.
Yeah.
So how this is all wired up is basically you write the stuff in TypeScript, and then you run the CLI, and then that generates artifacts that work in like an ASP.NET container?
Yeah. Yeah, so you build it, and it's basically, it'll build everything for the Angular app, and then it builds everything for the .NET app. Okay. And this template kind of wires it all up for you. So yeah, when you're doing the Angular.NET stuff, the template is the easiest way, just because it wires it all up. You can set it all up manually yourself too.
Okay.
Yeah, so what else was I?
And the spec, is that generated for you when you run the CLI?
Yes, when you run the CLI, it'll generate that spec for you to run your whatever unit tests you want to set up. I didn't set any up for this, but that's where they would go. Where is it?
And the templates are like kind of like mustache style templates, like the HTML?
Yes, yeah, the HTML is that mustache style, handlebars. You use the double curly brackets, and then this hero corresponds to the hero in the TypeScript right there. And then I don't really have much more because I tried to keep this really simple. And I had a bunch of slides, but they're too tiny, so I'm not going to go through them. So,
is this Angular 2?
This is Angular 2. It's actually Angular version 6 point something. But yeah, it's the newer Angular, not the original AngularJS. Is there anything else anyone wants to see or to talk about? Otherwise, I've lost track of where I'm going with this. Yeah, basically, high-level overview, Angular. All the components need to show up in a module. Angular CLI makes it really easy because it makes all the components, it imports all the components into your module for you. It also makes it really easy to build this and run it, and that's how we're running this example here. And that's about it. Oh, the other thing is the router, which is super important. If you want to be able to navigate to these different like URLs, you need to set up the routes and tell it which components are at those locations, which is what we've got here. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you guys.